They told me not to cross the boundary, said her house was built on a different kind of soil, not earth, but memory. I heard the humming first, not singing. It was too low, too steady, a pitch that scraped against the inside of my teeth. I saw the attic window completely dark, and then the curtains moved, but there was no wind, and there was no one inside. I shouldn't have brought the old book. Now something knows I have it.
The air in Blackwood Creek felt perpetually heavy, like a shroud woven from river mist and unspoken grief. I was an architectural historian, Dr. Alistair Finch, and my current obsession was the notorious Thistlewood Manor. Built in 1888 by Elias Thistlewood for his wife, Elara, the house had been empty for a century, yet local legend insisted it was never truly unoccupied. Elara, the widow of Blackwood, was not just a grieving wife after Elias's sudden death. She was, according to whispers, a woman who had sought communion with things that should not be named, exchanging her mortal soul for the knowledge to bring him back, or perhaps to keep his presence locked within the decaying walls. I had secured a notoriously difficult permit to photograph and document the structure before its inevitable collapse. My goal wasn't the ghost story, it was the construction. The house was a baffling contradiction of federal design and occult geometry. But the moment I stepped onto the property, the history became personal. The first day, the camera batteries drained in seconds, and my voice recorder captured only static, punctuated by a sound like dry leaves being dragged across a stone floor. I found a small iron-bound book, the alleged Grimoire of Elara, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the library. It wasn't written in any language I recognized, but the symbols pulsed with a kind of malignant familiarity.
My second night, I set up my cot in the main parlor. The scent of dried lavender and burnt wood, a signature of the house, was overwhelming. I was reviewing my photographs, all of them blurry, except for one. It was a close-up of a decorative fireplace mantel. In the heavy shadow on the left, an impossible detail emerged, a streak of white, fine as spider silk, moving against the dark oak. It was hair, long and unbound, but I had taken the photograph in a completely empty room. I felt a cold pressure on my chest, a sudden crushing weight of grief that wasn't mine. It was Elara's sorrow, amplified, physical. I scrambled for the lantern, and as the light cut through the gloom, I saw it, the dust on the floor near the hearth. A single, distinct indentation, shaped like the bare heel of a woman's foot, perfectly pressed into the century-old grime. I grabbed my bag to leave, but the main door, which I had secured with a heavy wooden crossbar, was now wide open. Not just open, but the heavy bar lay on the ground, snapped cleanly in the middle, as if by unimaginable force. The terror was not a visible specter. It was a slow, deliberate violation of sanity. I retreated to the attic, the highest point, theoretically the safest. The attic was dominated by a colossal, antique spinning wheel. Dust lay thick everywhere, except on the spokes of the wheel, which gleamed unnaturally. I studied the architecture again, tracing the structural anomalies. The entire east wall was an elaborate, internal chimney system, seemingly designed not for smoke, but for sound transmission. As I tapped the wall, a faint, metallic clink, clink, clink echoed from deep within. Then I saw the mirror, an old, tarnished standing mirror hidden behind a wardrobe. I cleaned a patch of the glass and looked at my reflection. My face was pale, panicked,
But in the space behind my own head, where the empty attic should have been visible, I saw a reflection of the spinning wheel, and upon its seat, a form. It was not a complete figure, but a woven shape, long pale strips of something that looked like linen but moved with a ghastly liquid grace. The strips were being spun, slowly, meticulously. As I watched, horrified, the pale strips began to weave into the outline of a dress, and then a torso. It was knitting itself a body from the threads of the house. I looked away, back into the room. The chair was empty. I looked back at the mirror. The pale strips were closer to a complete human form now, and I realized what the strips were. The bindings and shrouds of a grave. The humming began again, louder this time, originating from the chimney wall. It wasn't a woman's voice. It was a mechanical, grinding resonance, like the earth itself, trying to sing.
My eyes darted to the Thistlewood book I was carrying. As I looked down, the strange looping symbols on the cover began to darken, and then they didn't just move, they bled. A thick black ink oozed from the pages, staining my fingers, and I heard a single, brittle whisper from the wall, "My threads are long enough now." Panic gave way to animal instinct. I knew I had to get the book away from the house, or I would become part of the material she needed. I ran down the main staircase, hearing the rhythmic thump, 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 now directly above me, louder and faster, like a furious heart. I reached the bottom landing, slipping on the damp earthen floor. I looked back up. The landing was dark, but a shadow was coalescing at the top of the stairs. It wasn't the woven form. It was a silhouette of a woman, tall and thin, with impossibly long, dangling limbs, and she was holding something. It was my camera strap. I had dropped it upstairs. As she stepped into a sliver of moonlight, I saw her face, or where a face should be. It was not flesh, but a dense, knotted mass of black, damp hair, completely obscuring her features like a veil woven by a spider. She lifted a hand. It was brittle, skeletal. In that hand, she held the iron-bound book, the Grimoire. I realized I didn't have it. I had never had it. The book I was holding was my field journal. She slowly opened the book, my journal, and in the place of my careful notes, the pages were covered completely with one thing: the white, spider silk strands of her hair, meticulously woven into every line. I felt the hair on the back of my neck rise, not from fear, but from the sudden, impossible cold. My breath hitched. The figure at the top of the stairs leaned forward, and a single long strand of the white hair detached from the book and floated down toward me, landing perfectly on my open palm. Then, the single, unblinking yellow eye of a cat, which was woven into the center of the hair mass face, suddenly focused on me, and the house went completely silent.
Dr. Alistair Finch's expedition ended abruptly on October 31st. His body was never found. Only his coat was recovered, located 300 yards from the property line, completely lined on the inside with an unnaturally dense mat of human hair, identified by forensic science as belonging to a woman deceased since 1889.
seen their stories, but the darkness